The Exilari Empire was feared across the galaxy. Its warriors were some of the strongest beings in existence, known for their brutal strength and unmatched combat skills. But within the grand halls of the Imperial Palace, a problem existed, one that even the Empire's mighty army could not solve. Princess Soraya, the only daughter of King Vathsor, was weak. She was born frail, lacking the physical power that defined her kind. The Exilari were a warrior race, and strength was everything. A leader who could not fight was seen as unworthy of the throne. Many in the Empire whispered that Soraya was a disgrace. King Vathsor had tried everything. He had assigned the best trainers, forced Soraya through harsh combat lessons, and even exposed her to extreme conditions to make her stronger. But nothing worked. No matter how hard she trained, she always fell behind. The king was losing hope, until one day, he made a bold decision. Instead of giving her another Exilari warrior as a mentor, he decided to gift her a human. A strange arrival. Soraya stood in the grand throne room, staring at the prisoner before her. The man stood tall, with short brown hair and sharp eyes. He looked different from the warriors of her empire. He was smaller than Exilari, less muscular, yet something about him felt unshaken. "This is your new servant," King Vathsor said, his deep voice echoing through the hall. "A human. His name is Ethan Carter. He was captured during a battle against his people." Soraya frowned. She had heard of humans before. They were not known for their strength. In fact, they were considered weak compared to other species in the galaxy. But this one, he did not look weak. He stood confidently, his eyes scanning the room as if he was not afraid. She stepped forward, looking him up and down. "You are a human?" she asked. Ethan smirked. "Last time I checked." Soraya narrowed her eyes. She expected fear, obedience, maybe even desperation. Instead, she saw amusement. "Do you understand your purpose?" she said. "You are here to serve me." Ethan chuckled, crossing his arms. "Serve you, or teach you?" Her expression hardened. "You think you can teach me?" Ethan tilted his head. "That depends. Do you want to keep losing, or do you actually want to get stronger?" The room went silent. Even the guards looked surprised at his bold words. No one spoke to the princess like that. King Vathsor watched with interest but said nothing. He wanted to see how his daughter would handle this human. Soraya clenched her fists. "You do not speak to me like that." Ethan sighed. "All right, fine. Let's try this another way. You're here because you're weaker than the others, right?" She froze. Those words hit harder than any physical blow. "I'm not weak," she said through gritted teeth. Ethan shrugged. "Then prove it." A lesson in strength. Soraya led Ethan to the training grounds, determined to show him that she was not weak. The courtyard was large, filled with Exilari warriors sparring in combat. The sound of weapons clashing filled the air. Soraya grabbed a training sword and tossed one to Ethan. "Fight me." Ethan caught the sword but didn't move. "Are you sure? I thought I was supposed to be your servant." "Fight me," she repeated, gripping her weapon. "Now." Ethan sighed. "All right, but don't say I didn't warn you." She lunged at him with full force. She was fast, faster than most Exilari warriors. But Ethan was faster. Before she could land a strike, Ethan sidestepped effortlessly, dodging her attack. She swung again. He ducked. She tried again, but he simply stepped out of reach. The watching warriors started whispering. "Is he playing with her?" one of them muttered. Soraya's frustration grew. She attacked again, harder, faster, but Ethan never even blocked. He just moved. Finally, she swung with all her might, only to feel her sword miss completely. Ethan had stepped behind her. "You're too predictable," he said calmly. "You fight like everyone else here. All muscle, no strategy." Soraya turned, her face red with anger. "Then fight back." Ethan smiled. "You wouldn't last a second if I did." The warriors around them gasped. The princess of the empire, being mocked by a human. Soraya gritted her teeth. You're just dodging. That's not fighting. Ethan tossed his sword aside. Fine. Let's do this my way. Before she could react, he moved. In a blink, Ethan was right in front of her. He didn't strike her. He just reached out and lightly tapped her shoulder. Tag. You're dead. Soraya's eyes widened. If that had been a real battle, he could have killed her in that instant. For the first time, she felt true weakness. A new path. King Vathsor had been watching from the shadows. He had expected Ethan to be different, but he hadn't expected this. Ethan wasn't strong like the Xilari. He wasn't the kind of warrior who won through brute force. But he was something far more dangerous. He was clever. Soraya dropped her sword, her mind racing. How had he done that? How had he moved so fast, so effortlessly? Ethan dusted off his hands. You don't need more strength, he said. You need a new way to fight. Soraya took a deep breath. She hated to admit it, but for the first time, she saw the truth. Strength alone wasn't enough. And maybe, just maybe, this human could teach her something after all. Soraya had never felt so humiliated. A human, a species known for its weakness, had defeated her without even trying. And worse, he had done it in front of the warriors of the Xilari Empire. She clenched her fists as she sat in her chambers. The walls of her room were adorned with weapons, trophies, and reminders of her noble lineage. Yet none of it mattered now. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Go away, she said. The door opened anyway. Ethan stepped inside, his usual confident smirk on his face. You always give up this easily, he asked. Soraya glared at him. I did not lose. You cheated. Ethan laughed. Oh, dodging is cheating now. She stood up, her frustration growing. You did not fight with honor. A true warrior stands and faces their opponent with strength. Ethan sighed and shook his head. And that's why you keep losing. Soraya's jaw tightened. Explain. Ethan walked to the center of the room and crossed his arms. You Xilari think fighting is all about who hits harder. But that's not how wars are won. If strength was everything, humans would have gone extinct a long time ago. Soraya frowned. Then what do humans rely on? Ethan smiled. Our minds, strategy, speed, adaptability. You don't win by fighting harder. You win by fighting smarter. Soraya considered his words. Her whole life, she had been told that brute force was the answer to everything. But deep down, she knew the truth. No matter how much she trained, she would never match the physical power of the other Xilari warriors. But maybe she didn't have to. She took a deep breath. Fine. Teach me. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You sure? This won't be easy. You'll have to forget everything you know about fighting. Soraya straightened her back. I do not fear challenges. Ethan grinned. Good. Then let's begin. The first lesson. The next morning, Soraya followed Ethan to an empty training hall. It was different from the usual Xilari combat arenas. No heavy weapons, no battle armor, just a simple open space. Ethan tossed her a small wooden stick. She caught it, confused. What is this? A toy. It's a weapon. And if you know how to use it, you can take down anyone. Soraya scoffed. A stick cannot defeat a warrior in full armor. Ethan shrugged. If you say so. Attack me. Soraya wasted no time. She lunged forward, aiming for his shoulder. Ethan didn't block. Instead, he stepped aside at the last second, letting her momentum carry her forward. Before she could react, he tapped her wrist with his own stick, just enough to make her drop her weapon. She stumbled and turned around, frustration in her eyes. You are doing it again, just dodging. Ethan twirled his stick in his hand. And you're still falling for it. You're fighting like a Xilari. Stop relying on strength. Soraya exhaled sharply. She hated how easily he made her look foolish, but she forced herself to listen. "Then how do I fight?" Ethan smirked. "Watch closely." He grabbed a small piece of cloth and tied it around his eyes. Soraya's eyes widened. "You are blindfolding yourself." Ethan nodded. "Now attack me." She hesitated, then rushed forward, swinging the stick as fast as she could. To her shock, he dodged every strike perfectly. Blindfolded, no matter how fast or unpredictable she was, he seemed to sense her movements. After a dozen failed attacks, she stepped back, breathing heavily. "How?" she demanded. Ethan pulled off the blindfold. "I wasn't watching you. I was listening, feeling, predicting. You rely too much on your eyes. A real warrior doesn't react. They anticipate." Soraya's mind raced. This was completely different from how she had been trained. Ethan sat on the floor and tapped the ground. "Sit." Hesitant, she obeyed. "Now close your eyes," he instructed. Soraya hesitated, then shut them. "What do you hear?" She focused. The wind, the distant sound of warriors training, the hum of the palace generators. "Good. Now, what do you feel?" She paused. "The cold floor beneath me, the vibrations of footsteps nearby." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. Most fighters focus only on what they see. But the best ones, they use every sense. You're a princess, so you've never had to fight for survival. Humans have. That's why we learn to use everything around us." Soraya opened her eyes, looking at him with newfound curiosity. "This is why humans win, isn't it?" she asked. Ethan smirked. "Now you're getting it." A new beginning. For the next few days, Soraya trained under Ethan's guidance. At first, it was frustrating. She was used to hitting harder, fighting with brute force, but Ethan forced her to fight differently. She learned to listen rather than rely on sight. She learned to move rather than block. She learned to predict rather than react. And slowly, she began to change. The Xilari warriors who once mocked her now watched in silence as she dodged, countered, and outmaneuvered even the strongest of them. Even King Vathsor began to take notice. One evening, he watched from the shadows as Soraya sparred with Ethan. She moved faster, more precise than before. She was still weaker than the average Xilari, but now she was winning. The king stroked his chin. Interesting. Perhaps gifting her this human had not been a mistake after all. Soraya's body ached from training. Her muscles screamed in protest, but she ignored the pain. She had always believed strength was measured by brute force, but Ethan had opened her eyes. Speed, strategy, awareness. These were weapons just as powerful as any blade. For weeks, she had trained under him, learning to fight the human way. At first, she had struggled. Her instincts told her to fight like a Xilari, strong, direct, unyielding. But the more she trained, the more she saw results. She wasn't just surviving against warriors twice her size. She was winning. Now, standing in the royal training ground, she took a deep breath. This was her chance. The challenge begins. Soraya looked at the group of warriors before her. They were the strongest of the Xilari Empire, handpicked by her father, King Vathsor. The king sat on his throne, watching with sharp, calculating eyes. "Today, my daughter will prove herself," he declared. "She will face my warriors in combat. If she fails, she will return to her duties as a noble. If she wins, she will take her place among the strongest." The warriors chuckled. "A weak princess challenging us. This will be over in seconds," one of them sneered. Ethan leaned against a pillar, arms crossed. "You ready?" he asked. Soraya nodded. Yes. She wasn't the same warrior she had been before. The first opponent, her first challenger, stepped forward. A towering Xilari named Rothar, nearly twice her size. "You are not worthy of this fight, princess," Rothar growled. Soraya didn't respond. She simply raised her training staff, waiting. The moment the fight began, Rothar charged. The old Soraya would have tried to block. she would have stood her ground and been crushed. But she wasn't the old Soraya. Instead of blocking, she stepped aside. Rother's massive fist hit nothing but air. He stumbled forward. Before he could recover, Soraya struck the back of his knee. He collapsed. The crowd gasped. Rother growled and spun to grab her, but Soraya was already gone, moving too fast. Ethan smirked from the sidelines. Now you're getting it. Soraya didn't waste time. She moved behind Rother and swung her staff into his ribs. A precise strike, hitting a weak point. Rother groaned and fell to the ground. Defeated. The arena fell silent. The warriors watching were stunned. Soraya had just won. But the challenge wasn't over yet. The next challenger, the second warrior, Kyrek, was smarter than Rother. He didn't charge blindly. Instead, he studied her, waiting. Soraya could see the difference. This one would be harder to beat. She held her ground, focusing on her breathing. She had to be patient. Kyrek moved in, his attacks controlled and precise. He swung his blade at her legs, but she jumped back just in time. He attacked again, a feint. Soraya barely dodged the real strike that followed. She needed a plan. Then she noticed it. Kyrek's left knee was slower than the rest of his body. A weakness. Soraya pretended to stumble, making it look like she was off balance. Kyrek took the bait. He lunged forward, expecting an easy win. At the last moment, Soraya twisted her body and struck his weak knee with full force. Kyrek cried out and collapsed to one knee. Soraya didn't hesitate. She spun around and landed a second strike against his shoulder. Kyrek fell. The audience erupted in shock. 2 warriors defeated. Soraya stood tall, breathing heavily. She was winning. The final test. King Vathsor stood from his throne. Enough, he said. There is only one final opponent left. The warriors parted as a massive figure stepped forward. Soraya's breath caught in her throat. It was General Turok, the strongest warrior in the Empire. Even Ethan frowned. This might be a problem. Turok cracked his knuckles. No tricks, no games, princess, just pure combat. Soraya swallowed hard. She had trained for this. She knew she was different now. But was she ready for this? The king raised his hand. Begin. Turok moved faster than she expected. Soraya barely dodged as his massive fist smashed into the ground, cracking the stone. The force of the impact sent her stumbling back. Turok was on her instantly, throwing another powerful strike. She tried to dodge, but he was too fast. His fist grazed her shoulder, sending her rolling across the ground. Pain shot through her body. The crowd gasped. Ethan tensed. Get up. Soraya gritted her teeth. She couldn't win with brute force. She had to think. Turok charged again. At the last moment, Soraya dropped to the ground, rolling between his legs. She grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into the air. Turok's eyes widened as the dust cloud blurred his vision. Soraya moved. She struck his leg, twice, 3 times, 4 times, each hit targeting a weak spot. Turok roared in frustration, swinging wildly. Soraya dodged each attack. She wasn't trying to overpower him. She was wearing him down. Strike. Dodge. Move. The once unbeatable general began to slow. Soraya saw her chance. With all the strength she had left, she leaped into the air and brought her staff down onto his head. Thudi. Turok collapsed. Silence filled the arena. Soraya stood over his fallen body, breathing heavily. She had won. The warriors stared in disbelief. King Vathsor slowly clapped. Impressive. For the first time in her life, Soraya was no longer weak. She was a warrior. And the whole empire had just witnessed it. The training arena was silent. Soraya stood over General Turok's fallen body, her breath heavy. Sweat dripped from her forehead, but she didn't wipe it away. All around her, Silari warriors watched in shock. No one had expected this outcome. Turok, the mightiest warrior in the Empire, defeated by the frail princess. Ethan crossed his arms and smirked. "Told you," he muttered under his breath. On the royal platform, King Vathzor studied his daughter with an unreadable expression. Then he clapped. Slow, measured. "You have proven yourself." The warriors around them murmured, unsure how to react. Soraya had won, but what did it mean? The honor of a warrior. The king stepped forward, his towering figure casting a long shadow over the arena. "Soraya, you were given a human as a companion. I thought he would serve as your guard. Instead, he has turned you into something greater." He looked at Ethan. "You, human, what do you have to say?" Ethan shrugged. "I told her she wasn't weak. She just needed the right training." Some of the warriors scoffed at his casual tone. A human, speaking so freely in front of the king. But the king wasn't angry. If anything, he looked intrigued. He turned back to Soraya. "You have earned the right to join the warriors of the Xilari. But do you truly understand what that means?" Soraya straightened her back. "I do." King Vathzor raised his voice. "Then let it be known that from this day forward, Soraya is not just my daughter. She is a warrior of the Xilari Empire." A deep drum sounded, the official mark of recognition. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, cheers erupted. Even the warriors who had doubted her now pounded their chests in respect. Soraya's heart pounded. She had done it. A new path. Later that evening, Soraya and Ethan stood on one of the palace balconies, overlooking the city below. The streets were alive with celebration. Fires burned in honor of her victory. Ethan leaned against the railing. "So, how does it feel, being the Empire's newest warrior?" Soraya exhaled. Strange. She had spent her whole life believing she was weak. Now, everything had changed. "I should thank you," she admitted. Ethan shook his head. "I didn't do anything. You had this strength all along. You just needed a chance to show it." Soraya smirked. "That's what you always say." Ethan grinned. "Because it's true." They stood in silence for a moment. Then, Ethan frowned. "You do realize this isn't the end, right?" Soraya glanced at him. "What do you mean?" Ethan's expression turned serious. "You won today. But that means people will start paying attention to you, and not all of them will be happy about it." Soraya felt a chill run through her spine. He was right. Her father had accepted her victory, but there were many in the Empire who wouldn't. Not everyone wanted to see her succeed. The first threat. That night, as Soraya prepared to rest, a knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find a hooded figure standing outside. Before she could react, the figure stepped forward and pressed a small device into her palm. A message. The figure whispered, "Beware, princess. There are those who do not wish to see you rise." Then, without another word, the figure disappeared into the shadows. Soraya slowly uncurled her fingers and looked at the device. A single symbol was glowing on it. Her eyes widened. It was the mark of the High Council, the ruling body of the Empire. Why would they send her a warning? Her victory had made her strong. But now, she had enemies. The Council's true intentions. The next morning, Soraya and Ethan were summoned to the royal court. King Vathzor sat on his throne, surrounded by the High Council members, elders who advised the king on matters of war and politics. One of them, a tall Xilari with silver markings, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, with respect, the council has concerns about Soraya's recent rise." The king narrowed his eyes. "Speak plainly." The elder hesitated, then said, "A princess should not fight like a common soldier. It is unbecoming of the royal family." Soraya clenched her fists. "So you would rather see me weak?" The elder's expression remained calm. "It is not about strength. It is about order." Ethan crossed his arms. "Sounds like you just don't like change." A few council members murmured at his bluntness, but Ethan didn't care. Soraya took a deep breath. I am stronger now than I have ever been, and I will not let tradition hold me back." The elder's eyes darkened. "Then you leave us no choice." Cain Vathsor frowned. "What are you suggesting?" The elder straightened. "A test." The council members nodded. "Let Soraya prove her strength in a real battle, against a true enemy." Soraya felt her blood run cold. This was a trap, a way to remove her. But she wouldn't back down. She raised her chin. "I accept." The elder smirked. "Very well. The battle will take place in 3 days. Ethan leaned in and whispered, "I have a bad feeling about this." Soraya did too. The council wanted to get rid of her, and this battle was how they planned to do it. Soraya stood at the center of the Grand War Hall. The High Council members watched her in silence. Their expressions were calm, but she could sense their true feelings. They wanted her gone. King Vathsor sat on his throne, his gaze unreadable. Even he could not overrule the council's challenge. A trial had been set. Soraya had 3 days to prepare for a real battle against an enemy of the Empire. Failure would mean disgrace, or worse. Ethan stood beside her, his arms crossed. "So let me get this straight. They want you to fight some dangerous enemy, alone, just to prove you belong." The eldest council member, the one with silver markings, nodded. "That is correct." Ethan scoffed. "Sounds like a trap." The elder ignored him. "The trial will take place on the planet Drakthal. There, a group of rebel warriors has resisted the Empire for years. You will be sent alone to eliminate their leader." Soraya's heart pounded. Drakthal, a harsh, lawless world. The rebels there were known for their brutality, but she refused to show fear. She stepped forward and met the elder's gaze. "I accept." A murmur spread through the hall. The elder smirked. "Then prepare yourself, princess. This will be your final test. The challenge begins." That evening, Soraya and Ethan returned to her quarters. The tension in the air was heavy. Ethan pushed his hands through his hair and sighed. "I knew they'd pull something like this. They don't want you to win." Soraya sat on the edge of her bed. "I know." Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. "We need to train harder. You'll be fighting a real army this time, not just a single opponent." Soraya nodded. She wasn't just facing an enemy. She was fighting for her right to exist as a warrior. That night, they trained harder than ever before. Ethan pushed her limits, teaching her new tactics, new ways to think in battle. "Your mind is your greatest weapon," he reminded her. "Use it." Soraya listened carefully, absorbing everything. She wouldn't fail. Arrival on Drakthal. 3 days later, a royal warship landed on the dusty, red surface of Drakthal. Soraya stepped out, dressed in full battle armor. The Exilari crest shined on her chest. She carried a single blade, the only weapon allowed for the trial. Above her, 2 moons hung in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the barren landscape. The warship's captain saluted her. "Princess, the rebel base is 2 miles north. You must eliminate their leader, then signal for retrieval." Soraya nodded. "Understood." The ramp closed behind her, and the warship took off. She was alone now. The trial had begun. A dangerous battlefield. Soraya moved swiftly, her senses sharp. The terrain was rough, filled with jagged rocks and deep canyons. Perfect for an ambush. Ethan's voice echoed in her mind. "Always expect the unexpected." Then she heard it, the sound of movement. She rolled to the side just as a plasma bolt shot past her head. She spun around, raising her blade. 3 rebel warriors emerged from behind the rocks, tall, armored, and armed with plasma rifles. One of them smirked. "The Exilari princess came alone. That's insulting." Soraya didn't reply. Instead, she launched forward. She was faster than they expected. She sliced through the first warrior's weapon before he could fire. A precise, clean strike. The second warrior lunged at her, but she dodged and swept his legs from under him. The The third managed to fire a shot, but Soraya deflected it with her blade. Before he could react, she knocked him unconscious with a powerful kick. 3 enemies down. Soraya exhaled. She was ready for this. She kept moving. The rebel leader. After an hour of traveling through the rocky terrain, Soraya finally reached the rebel base. It was hidden within a canyon, surrounded by metal barricades. At the entrance, a lone figure stood waiting. Soraya's eyes narrowed. The rebel leader. Unlike the others, he wasn't wearing heavy armor, just a dark cloak and 2 curved blades strapped to his back. He smiled. I heard the auxiliary princess was coming. I had to see for myself. Soraya raised her sword. Surrender now. The leader chuckled. Oh, I don't think so. Then he moved, faster than anyone she had fought before. Soraya barely had time to raise her weapon before he was on her. Their blades clashed, sending sparks flying. Soraya twisted, dodging his attacks while countering with her own. But he was skilled, far more skilled than General Tarak. For the first time in a long time, Soraya felt pushed to her limit. She gritted her teeth. She couldn't lose. The fight continued, strike after strike, dodge after dodge. Then she saw it. A weakness. The leader favored his left side. Soraya took a risk. She feinted right, then spun and struck left. Her blade cut through his defenses, slashing his shoulder. The rebel leader stumbled back. For a moment, there was silence. Then he laughed. Impressive. Maybe you really are a warrior. Soraya didn't lower her sword. Yield. The leader smiled. All right. You win, princess. Soraya blinked. That was it. Something felt off. Then, before she could react, a sharp pain shot through her side. She gasped. A hidden blade. The leader whispered, The council sent you here to die, and I was happy to help. Soraya staggered back. Ethan had been right. This was a trap. But she wouldn't fall. Not yet. Her vision blurred, but she gripped her sword tighter. She still had a fight to win. Pain burned through Soraya's side. The rebel leader's hidden blade had struck deep, but she refused to fall. Not here. Not now. The leader stepped back, watching her with amusement. You auxiliary think you're invincible, but you bleed just like the rest. Soraya gritted her teeth. She had come too far to lose. She tightened her grip on her sword. Ethan's voice echoed in her mind. Pain is just a signal. Control it. Use it. With a deep breath, she forced the pain away. Her stance steadied. Her vision cleared. The rebel leader's smirk faded. Still standing. Impressive. Soraya didn't answer. She moved. A fight to the end. She attacked with renewed speed. The rebel leader barely had time to block before her blade came crashing down. He staggered. Soraya spun, striking again. Her sword cut across his arm. He grunted, stepping back. His confidence was gone. Soraya pressed forward, using every lesson Ethan had taught her. Speed, precision, strategy. The leader fought back, but he was tiring. His attacks slowed. His movements became predictable. Soraya saw her opening. One final strike. She lunged forward. Her sword cut through his defenses, stopping just at his throat. The leader froze. His breathing was heavy. He knew he had lost. Soraya stared into his eyes. Yield. For a moment, there was silence. Then the leader dropped his weapon. He let out a breathless laugh. You really are a warrior. Soraya lowered her sword, but she didn't relax. Something still felt off. Why did he surrender so easily? A deadly betrayal. Before Soraya could react, she heard a sharp whistle from the canyon walls. Her instincts screamed danger. She jumped back, just as plasma bolts rained down from above. The rebels had set a trap. Dozens of hidden warriors appeared from the rocks, weapons aimed at her. Soraya clenched her jaw. They had never planned to let her leave. The leader smirked. The council sent you here to die, Princess. You didn't think we'd let you go, did you? Soraya's mind raced. She was outnumbered, wounded, alone. But she was not weak. She was a warrior. She gripped her sword tighter. If she was going to die, she would take as many of them down as possible. The rebels opened fire. Soraya dashed forward, dodging between the blasts. Her sword flashed, cutting through the nearest enemy. She fought without hesitation, without fear. One by one, rebels fell around her. But there were too many. A plasma bolt struck her shoulder. She gasped, falling to one knee. Her strength was fading. The rebel leader approached, holding a plasma pistol. Good fight, Princess, but this is the end. He aimed. Soraya closed her eyes. Then, boom. An explosion shook the canyon. A warship roared overhead. Blaster fire rained down on the rebels. Soraya's eyes widened. She knew that ship. Ethan. The humans' arrival. From the warship's open ramp, Ethan leaped down, blaster in hand. He moved like a storm, fast, precise, unstoppable ****. The rebels panicked. Their ambush was failing. Ethan reached Soraya's side and helped her up. His eyes scanned her injuries. You look terrible. Soraya smirked, wincing. You're late. Ethan chuckled. I had to make an entrance. Together, they turned to face the remaining rebels. Ethan handed her a plasma pistol. Let's finish this. Soraya nodded. The battle resumed. This time, the rebels stood no chance. With Ethan at her side, Soraya fought stronger than ever. They were unstoppable. The victory. The last rebel fell to the ground, defeated. The canyon was silent. The battle was over. Soraya and Ethan stood side by side, breathing heavily. The rebel leader lay on the ground, wounded but alive. Soraya pointed her weapon at him. Surrender, for real this time. The leader groaned and nodded. You win, Princess. Soraya lowered her pistol. Ethan nudged her. So, do we take him back? Soraya hesitated. The council had sent her to die. If she returned victorious, what would they do next? She had proven herself as a warrior. But was that enough? She looked at Ethan. I need to think. He nodded. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Soraya took a deep breath. The battle was won. But the real fight was still ahead. The battle in the canyon was over. The rebels had been defeated. The air smelled of smoke and scorched stone, but Soraya barely noticed. She stood tall, even though her wounds ached, her body exhausted from the fight. Ethan stood beside her, his blaster still warm from use. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and let out a deep breath. You okay? Soraya nodded. I will be. The rebel leader groaned on the ground, clutching his injured arm. He looked up at Soraya with tired eyes. What now, Princess? Kill me and take your victory. Soraya didn't answer immediately. The old Soraya, the weak, frail girl she had once been, might have hesitated, but she was no longer that person. She crouched beside him. No, I'm taking you back to the council. You will answer for what you've done. The leader chuckled weakly. The council. They sent you here to die. You think they'll reward you for surviving? Soraya clenched her jaw. He was right. The council had never believed in her. To them, she was weak, a mistake, an embarrassment to the Xilari royal bloodline. They had sent her on this mission to fail. But she hadn't failed. She had won. And she wasn't going to let anyone take that victory from her. She stood and turned to Ethan. We're not going back to the council. Not yet. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Then where are we going? Soraya looked out at the horizon. Her home planet, Silara, was waiting for her. But this time, she wasn't returning as a weak princess. She was coming back as a warrior. Returning home. The warship hovered over the capital city of Silara. The silver towers of the royal palace gleamed under the twin suns. But Soraya felt no comfort. She had left this place as a fragile girl. Now she was something else. She stepped off the ship, Ethan right behind her. Guards immediately approached, their weapons raised. "Princess Soraya, the council demands your presence." Soraya didn't flinch. "Then take me to them." She walked through the palace halls, her boots echoing on the polished floors. The guards escorted her into the grand chamber where the High Council sat in their elevated seats. Their golden robes shimmered under the glowing blue lights of the hall. The council leader, an old Silari with sharp eyes, studied her. "You were supposed to die in the canyon." Soraya met his gaze. "I didn't." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some of the council members looked uneasy. Others seemed disappointed. The leader narrowed his eyes. "You returned victorious. And yet, I do not sense humility in you. Do you think this means you are worthy?" Soraya took a deep breath. This was the moment. The true test. She stepped forward. "I don't care what you think anymore." The room fell silent. Ethan smirked in the background. "Here we go." Soraya's voice was steady. "You sent me to die because you believed I was weak, because I was different, but I proved you wrong. I defeated the rebels. I became stronger than you ever imagined." She gestured to Ethan. "And I did it with the help of a human, the very species you look down upon." Some council members scowled. Others exchanged nervous glances. The leader's expression hardened. "You have forgotten your place, child." Soraya shook her head. "No, I have finally found it." The challenge. The leader leaned forward. "You believe yourself strong. Prove it. Fight one of our finest warriors. If you win, you will be recognized as a true Silari warrior." A deep voice echoed through the hall. "I accept the challenge." A massive Silari stepped forward. He was nearly twice Soraya's size, his muscles thick with years of combat training. His golden armor gleamed, and his sharp eyes locked onto her. Soraya nodded. "Fine. Let's finish this." The crowd gathered in the royal arena. The skies above were darkening, the twin suns setting. The energy in the air was electric. Soraya tightened a grip on her sword. She wasn't afraid. The warrior lunged first. She dodged. He swung again, faster this time. Soraya countered, her blade meeting his with a sharp clang. Sparks flew. The fight was brutal. The warrior was strong, but Soraya was faster, smarter. Ethan's training had changed her. She didn't just react. She predicted, adapted, controlled the fight. With a final, precise strike, Soraya knocked the warrior's weapon from his hand. She pressed her sword to his chest. The crowd fell silent. The warrior looked at her with respect in his eyes. Then he knelt. "You have won, princess." The council had no choice. Soraya had proven herself. A new era. As she stood before the council once more, the leader sighed. "Very well. You are no longer just a princess. You are a warrior of Silara." Soraya didn't smile. She didn't need to. She had already won. She turned to Ethan, who grinned. "Told you that training would pay off." She smirked. "You were right." The leader spoke again. "And what of the human?" Soraya's expression hardened. "He stays with me." There was a long pause. Then, to everyone's shock, the leader nodded. "So be it." Soraya looked at Ethan. They had done it. She was no longer just a fragile princess. She was a warrior. And with Ethan by her side, her story was only beginning.